Yes guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. There's Bugsy Malone doing the things that she loves up front, marshalling the service. Hope you're all happy and healthy. I'm trying to get healthy. It's killing me, this bug. Really is. It's on again, off again. I hope it's finally being beaten. Apologies for not doing a video yesterday. So let's catch up. Today, we've got to talk about some more transfer news, views and clues. Before I do, let me ask you for some favours. Please smash the like button for me like you always do on the video. Hit the subscribe on the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. As I say, transfer news, views and clues in the shape of wingers. There's a few topics, a few stories here that I've kind of not had the chance to get through. The first is about Armand Lauriente. Sassuolo winger, plays off the left, strong with both feet, really interesting player. A player that came to my attention last season when I think he had 15 goal contributions. I think it was 8 goals and 7 assists. He's a tricky winger, but he's not like a little winger. He's got kind of quite lanky-ish legs, quite a languid running style. But he can move those legs fairly quickly. Good at dribbling, cuts the ball inside really well. Got a powerful right foot that he also can take free kicks with, and scored a couple of goals in that fashion last season. He also has that very special ability to be able to get to the byline and pull the ball back into the danger zone. Kind of FIFA settings, you know, like most people on FIFA who are fairly basic with the game. That's all they really try to do. They push it out wide, get to the byline and pull it back and hope that someone's there to slot it home. Fairly predictable. But you know what? A lot of Tottenham goals this season have come through that sort of style of play. And it's obviously a very effective weapon if you can do it and execute it with sublime efficiency. And I think that Tottenham are better at that than a lot. But what it requires is players who are unpredictable, because if you're always going to go to the byline, then that gets snuffed out pretty quickly. But just like we see a lot with Deki and Kulusevski on the right, a lot of people get frustrated. I've been talking about it forever. His predictability is an issue. He likes to cut inside, and Postecoglou's system traditionally prefers wingers that can go to the outside and then have the inverted fullbacks come through and play in the hole, in the half space. And this guy, Armand Loriente, is a player who is unpredictable in as much as he is just as capable and competent cutting in onto his right and releasing a powerful snapshot as he is getting to the byline. Morning guys, how you doing? As he is getting to the byline and pulling it back. And you can imagine and envision, if you work with me here, the amount of success that could happen with him getting to that byline and having that ability to find someone, look up and execute the pullback with aplomb. There's a never-ending list of tricky players. Every team in the Premier League has got, you know, 1 or 2 players that are quick, nimble, fast, tricky, good feet, step overs galore, and look dangerous. The thing that separates the wheat from the chaff within that kind of ilk of player is their final product. And finding a player that can do all of the dangerous stuff, look impressive, be scary to be ran at, but also have that final delivery is generally the difference between a £20 million guy and a 50 or a 60 million pound guy. And I think personally that Armand Loriente is of the latter. I think he's got everything to kick on with his career. French international, he's 24 years old. I'm not sure what the asking price is, if there is one. But I do know that this was a story that first broke about a week or so ago, maybe a little bit longer. And our man Fabrizio Romano said that the links are there mainly because Tottenham are always scouting the Italian league. They are big favourites of the Italian league. And that Tottenham have scouts basically at every game now, and any player that emerges in that league from any particular team if they happen to fit a sort of style of football or player that would suit the Postecoglou system and happen to also be in an area that Tottenham needs support in, then the chances are that Tottenham will be linked. But as far as he's aware, there is no concrete bids been made or approaches been made for Lauriente. We'll see how he does this season. I'd imagine that if there is going to be any action in that area of the pitch, it might come in January, it might do. But there's reasons why I think that maybe Lauriente has to prove himself this season, and if there is a story that emerges with relating to Tottenham, it might not happen until the summer, if at all. And that is because I guess there's two other players that I want to talk about. The first is Jota, who ex-Celtic, knows Postecoglou really well, who currently applies his trade, or at least is trying to apply his trade, over in Saudi Arabia. He was signed, I think it's for Al Ittihad, could be wrong on the club, apologies if I am, but he was unregistered because they signed too many players in the end, and so he hasn't kicked the ball this season, and he's desperate to find a solution, and one of those solutions may be that he is given free agency. He's released from his contract, paid out potentially in full, and then can come back. And because of the rules with regard free agency, he can technically sign for anybody at any point in the season. As far as I'm aware, I think that is the case. Which, before I get to Jota, let me just press pause for a second and talk about that as a circumstance. When you have situations where teams like Newcastle are owned by the same people that own 4 or 5 clubs in Saudi Arabia, the PIF, the investment fund, and when you have teams like Chelsea, who through third-party actors like Clearlake Capital are also somewhat technically owned by the PIF fund as well, then is it not a dangerous scenario that we could find ourselves in, where another potential loophole for these people with bottomless pits of money could emerge and could be exploited, that the Saudi Arabian clubs could sign these players, and then if there was a series of injuries to a particular area in the pitch, to Chelsea or to Newcastle United, that the Saudi Arabian club could just liquidate the player, tear up their contract in Saudi Arabia, allow them to be a free agent, and then of course push the transfer towards Newcastle or Chelsea so that they can fill their hole. It's almost like a kind of get out of jail free card, or not free for Saudi Arabia because it would cost them a lot of money, and the player of course would get paid out in full. But I feel like there's a loophole. If that law is as I think it is, and I'm pretty sure it is, then I feel like there's a loophole there that could be exploited at some point in the future. So watch this space on that one. But anyway, Jota is a player who can't get a minute because he's not registered with his Saudi club, and the Saudi club are thinking about whether to just keep him on the sidelines until January and then sell him, which, if you're a club that's trying to think with the business head on, then that would make the most sense. Where would he go? Would he go back to Celtic? Well, Celtic would probably love to have him. I think at Celtic he scored or contributed something like 57, 58 goal contributions, either goals or assists, in about 84 games. I might be, because my memory's terrible, but I think that's basically the statistic, give or take 1 or 2 here and there. About 55, 56 goal contributions in about 85 or 86 games in the 2 seasons for Celtic. Phenomenal return. A lot of people think he's not the player that he was, that he's dead food, washed up now. I'm not sure. I think he's another player that has an incredible amount of key skills that do fit the system. And the reason why I find it interesting with what Postecoglou would want to do is, above and beyond the idea that he knows Postecoglou, he knows the system, and Postecoglou probably has faith in him. But I do think that even though we have, a fairly decent amount of wide players, we've got injuries we have to concern ourselves with. Brian Hill's still not fully fit, and when he is fit, is he, and how will he be utilised and applied into this system? A lot of people, myself included, think he could actually play better as a Maddison backup do what Harry Redknapp did to Modric and bring him in more central into that 10 role, where he can kind of unlock some things with his a wider range of passes. Other people think he's still traditionally left. He doesn't have the strength to play in the 10. That's for a different conversation on a different day. But we have the issue with Perisic being out for basically the rest of the season. Manor Solomon, look, for me the jury is very much still out on him. We signed him for free. There probably is a £20 million price tag on that guy's head, maybe 25 million. Obviously, you might have seen yesterday, but the Shakhtar CEO hasn't given up on his pursuit of some compensation. He said that they spent €6.5 million on Manor Solomon, and through no fault of their own, they lost the asset. It's not a lot of money to a club like Tottenham Hotspur. Surely there is some, goodwill, good faith gesture. What do you think, guys, regarding all that? And he's hoping that Daniel Levy will put his hand in his pocket and hand over €6 million or something close to that, just out of the goodness of his own heart, when he doesn't have to. I mean, I've been saying it for a long time. Say what you will about Daniel Levy, but good or bad, I don't think he's the sort of person that's just going to hand over £6 million unless he absolutely has to. And I think that the rule is FIFA's jurisdiction, so FIFA have got a lot of money. Maybe they should be the ones to hand over the cash or some level of compensation to Shakhtar. I don't know, but in any event, the question mark around Manor Solomon's versatility, his adaptability, his application, for me, I see a lot of people on Tottenham YouTube channels saying that they don't think he's good enough, they don't rate him, doesn't have enough final product, and that to me is the question mark over all of these types of players. There's so many of them. There's a player that I really like, Koleosho, who I think could be one of these kids that comes up and makes it, if you like, makes that next step towards the final product, the final delivery, because there's so many people that can do the step overs and the tricky stuff, and Manor Solomon has all that in spades, but does he have the final, the thing? And that question that remains open at the moment. I'm going to lean and say he hasn't particularly flattered my eyes. I don't think he's been spectacular. And maybe there's better options out there, whether or not Jota is one of them, whether or not Armand Lauriente is the guy that Tottenham are going to keep their options open, keep their eyes open for, for a winger. It seems like in January one of the priorities is a winger. For me, it's not the priority. I understand that there's potentially conversations to be had everywhere. We definitely need a new centre back. There'll be a second video coming out about that very shortly. Keep an eye out for that one today. There's an argument to say that if we're going to lose, the two midfielders, Sarr and Bissouma, in the African Cup of Nations, then we need someone to come in. You hope Bentancur's going to be back by then for January. But we will also need somebody else, and is it going to be Pierre Mahoybier or Lo Celso? Well, there's rumours that both of those guys want out, so Tottenham maybe needs to look in the midfield as well, and there's rumours around those, which we'll talk about maybe on tomorrow's show. But there's also, of course, always the ever-going pressing issue of a number 9. Santiago Jimenez is the player that I have been talking about all summer. I love him, and there's more strong links to him again today and yesterday, so I'll be talking about him more specifically in another video coming up. But the winger is definitely out, an option that needs to be improved upon if we're going to get slightly more output. For me, Decky on the right-hand side, look, his goal and his contribution this year is pretty good for where we're at, but I just think that he is too predictable, and I can't believe that Postecoglou is telling him to cut inside as often as he does. I just think it's his go-to where he feels more comfortable. He doesn't trust his right foot, even though, for what it's worth, the few times that I've seen him go to the byline and use his right foot, he never disappoints. He always puts it into the dangerous area. I just think he favours his left foot 10 times more than he favours his right, which is what it is. But like I say, predictability is an issue, and with him it's glaringly obvious that starts to get snuffed out by smart defenders that know what he's going to do and just show him on the inside, or show him to the outside and cut off his inside track. Is there an option to put him onto the left hand side, let him use his left foot but go to the byline? Possibly. We've heard rumours that Tottenham are training in that regard, but we haven't seen it on the pitch yet. We have seen him come more central, and I think he's worked very well in that regard. So if Maddison is looking tired or is carrying an injury and needs a breather, then maybe we might see Kulusevski come more central and try him out whilst Lo Celso is still out injured. The other option, guys, not the other option, but the other name I wanted to drop regarding this forward kind of accessibility that can pretty much do a lot of things very, very well, and it probably has the unpredictability factor because no one really knows anything about him yet unless you're very much keen on the under-21s, is Jaimie Donley. Again, another wonderful performance from him this week in the under-21s when Tottenham beat Chelsea 4-2. Another 2 goals, another brace from him. I think he's now on 13 goal contributions in 7 games for the under-21s. He's only 18 years old. He got himself into the first team squad for the Liverpool game. He, obviously an unused substitute. But this guy, to me, looks like the next big thing coming out of the youth team. Last season we saw George Abbott make his debut. Came out of nowhere, got his professional terms contract in like March. Made himself into the first team squad 2 weeks later, and by the end of the season got his debut. And actually did really well in the 20 minutes he was given. Haven't heard too much from George. I'm not sure if he's injured or what's happened there, but Jaimie Donley seems to be this season's surprise emerging talent, and he can play anywhere. He's played in the 9, in the 10, he can play on the right and can play on the left. And maybe, just maybe, out of adversity becomes opportunity. Out of every problem there is an opportunity for someone, somewhere. And I think Jaimie Donley might be the beneficiary of some of these issues we're facing with injuries to Brian Hill and to Perisic, you know, and maybe to Sonny. We're not entirely sure what's going on, if there's any like long-term or kind of niggling injuries there, but certainly the options within our forward line are starting to be a little bit less available, and the performances sometimes need to be reviewed. And for me, Jaimie Donley is a player who every time I see him, he looks head and shoulders above the level that he's at. It always then begs the question, is he ready? Is the gap too big between the under-21s and the Premier League to really know for sure whether or not he's of that standard yet? And the answer probably comes back with, most usually, we don't know, so let's send him out on loan. But it's pretty difficult to find a team that plays Tottenham's style of football in the Championship or in League One. And if we're sending him to League One, then he's clearly not ready. But I don't know, at some point when you're doing that well for the reserve team, does the guy deserve some minutes? Let's see. Sink or swim, throw him in at the deep end. Maybe, just maybe, against Luton, it's an opportunity where if we do find ourselves 3-0 up at half-time against, you know, let's be honest, no disrespect to Luton, but a team where if we are 3-0 up, they're not getting back into the game, then maybe you give him 25 minutes and see what he can do. Because every time I watch him for under 20,